And now, the Bigfoot Corporation, makers of quality tree sap extractor since 2015, the only tree sap extractor you'll ever need, proudly presents tonight's presentation of Dr. Francis Stein, Mad Domestic Scientist. This is the story of Dr. Francis Stein, a housewife by day and a mad scientist by midday. As today's episode begins, Frances has lovingly sent her husband Harold off to work and their two children, Bobby and Sally, off to school, and has transformed herself from a loving housewife into a mad domestic scientist. We pick up the action as Dr. Francis Stein, aided by her faithful lackey assistant Boris, is preparing for a visit from a very special guest.
Boris, my devoted underling. What have you been doing in here all night long? I distinctly told you to have my laboratory polished and orderly. It is merely clean and tidy.
Well, I am so sorry, Doctor, but while I was busy working, I came across these old leather straps, and you know how much I enjoy old leather straps. They were quite delicious.
Boris, you feeble-minded underling. I fear your unorthodox culinary tastes have made me more disappointed in your performance than I usually am. How could you have let me down like this? Today of all days, when I'm expecting a very important visitor.
And who, my unequaled superior, is this important visitor?
Why, it's my Uncle Odious.
Oh, yes, of course. But I beg your pardon for asking, but who is your Uncle Odious?
Who is my Uncle Odious? Who is my Uncle Odious, Boris? You disappoint me again. He's the greatest domestic scientist in the history of domestic science, mad or otherwise. Why, he's the man who inspired me to pursue a career as a mad household scientist. It was his example that led me into the field of domiciliary experimental arts. He, above all others, has been the single most influential person in my life.
Oh, you don't say.
As a young girl, I stood beside him when he developed a process that transformed a 30-watt light bulb into a 31-watt light bulb. I watched in childlike amazement as he experimented on dandelions to make them into useful members of his courtyard society.
Well, those all sound like worthwhile advances indeed.
I owe him so much. I regard him so highly. I revere and honor his name.
Excuse me for saying, Doctor, but concerning the honoring of his name, doesn't the word odious refer to an utterly unpleasant or wicked person or act?
How dare you, you inferior creature! For that remark, I shall turn you into an ashtray and take up smoking so as to deposit my ashes in you and leave them there overnight. Oh, but I shall have to attend to that later. That must be Uncle Odious at the door.
And so Dr. Francis Stein answers the door, and there before her stands her favorite uncle.
Oh, Uncle Odious, how good it is to see you!
Yes, and how good it is to see you, my dear Francis. My, you are looking well. Your complexion has a robust color to it. Your posture is straight and proud, and your eyes have a delightfully mad, domestic sparkle to them.
Oh, thank you, Uncle Odious, and you look especially eccentric.
Oh, you were just flattering an old man, my dear Francis.
Of course, I am not, Uncle, it is true.
Well, enough of the pleasantries. Show me your laboratory. I am eager to see where you conduct your mad experiments, my dear.
Of course, Uncle Odious. Please come this way.
Dr. Francis Stein shows her Uncle Odious her laboratory. She shows him her stock of chemicals, her supply of beakers and test tubes, her research catalog, and her notes on all of her experiments and observations, after which she has Boris serve them both a cup of her homemade macadamian tea.
All very impressive, my dear, and this tea is delicious. You have indeed made me proud.
Why, thank you, Uncle Odious. That means so much coming from you. Boris, my unworthy servant, we need more tea.
Yes, Doctor, of course.
And who is this loathsome creature I see constantly groveling at your feet?
Him? He's my devoted yet just barely competent laboratory assistant, Boris.
Well, good laboratory assistants are hard to find. Why, the most useful ones are those who possess a secure knowledge of their inferiority to those like us who are their superiors.
I agree. Their subservient self-awareness makes them quite submissive and obedient, yet they lack the scientific intuitiveness to make them efficient and dependable. I'm constantly having to punish Boris here for making simple and frustrating mistakes and miscalculations.
Ah, the ideal minion would be one who is both loyal and devoted, yet possesses the intellect to match that of their master.
Oh, if only there were a way to harness the genius of a mad scientist and wed it to the subservient obedience of an inferior.
Why, it's funny you should say that, Francis, my dear. That has been the subject of my latest experimentation, and after several months of madly devoted labor, I believe I have developed a serum that will do just what geniuses like us have always longed for. I call it the submissive serum.
How does it work?
1 tablespoon of my submissive serum will transform the most independent and self-sufficient person into the willing and obedient slave of the one who administered it to them.
How exciting! I'm feeling a bit faint. Oh, this is rather odd.
It is not odd, my dear. Rather or otherwise, you are merely experiencing the natural reaction of someone who has been given a dose of my submissive serum.
What do you mean, Uncle Odious?
I took the liberty of adding a tablespoon of my serum into your tea.
I don't understand.
Why, it is quite a simple matter, my dear. You see, someone like you would be the perfect laboratory underling. With your brilliant mind and mad scientific experimental sense, you would instinctively know what needs to be done and how to do it. But your independent and self-sufficient will would have to be brought into submission first.
What are you saying?
Once my submissive serum works its way through your system, it will transform you from a talented and gifted mad domestic scientist into a talented and gifted yet submissive and obedient laboratory assistant.
Uncle Odious, you're turning me into your slave?
Oh, don't worry, my precious Francis. My serum will cause you to be quite content with your new submissive estate, and you will possess all the skills and abilities of a genius, along with the devotion and loyalty of a completely enthralled minion that will be quite useful to me.
Oh, Boris, my devoted lackey, you must help me. Being in the total control of another works well for you, but for me, why, it mustn't happen. I fear I'm losing consciousness.
Doctor, are you all right?
Oh, don't worry about her. She will come around quite soon enough.
Speak to me, Doctor. Speak to me.
Oh, no. She will not speak unless she is spoken to by her new master. Isn't that right, my brilliant little servant?
Yes, Master. I'm yours to command.
Oh, this is terrible. Come, Doctor, let's get to work on an antidote.
Oh, the only work she will be doing is the work I command her to do.
Oh, Doctor, we must work quickly to reverse the effects of this serum.
Oh, you dull, lonely creature. Frances has no desire to reverse the effects of my drug. She enjoys being my servant. Tell him, my faithful minion.
I enjoy being your servant, Master.
Oh, I've got to do something.
Well, if you want to do something, then clean up this laboratory. My new laboratory minion and I have a lot of fiendishly mad experiments to conduct. Now that Frances is in my power, I will command her to put a dose of my submissive serum into her family's dinner, and they too will become my willing servants. And then I will command her to host a neighborhood barbecue, where she will infest all of her neighbors with my serum. And then I will be the exalted ruler of the whole housing development, with several dozen families serving me as my eager slaves. Ha 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 ha! Oh, laugh with me, my devoted servant. I do not wish to laugh alone.
Yes, Master.
I won't let you do this, Uncle Odious. I will stop you.
Oh, I don't think so. Francis, my obedient lackey, strap this incessantly babbling incompetent to this table while I give him a serum that will turn him into a turnip.
Yes, Master.
Oh, no, Doctor, you let me go. You mustn't. do this, please.
Hold still so my master can turn you into an onion.
An onion? I thought he said turnip.
Turnip.
Things do not look good for Dr. Francis Stein, and they look even worse for Boris. Will he be turned into a turnip and rot in the pantry because nobody in the house likes turnips? And what about Dr. Francis Stein? Will she spend the rest of her days as the servant of a mad and wicked domestic scientist? And what about Uncle Odious? Will he succeed in his quest to rule over the entire housing development? You will want to join us again next time for part 2 of Dr. Francis Stein, Mad Domestic Scientist.